Welcome to Money, Manifestation, and Business, the podcast that shows you how to use your energy, intention, and consciousness to reprogram your money mindset, unleash a new level of possibility, and create a life and business that lights you up. I'm your host, Jamie Berman, and I invite you to join me each week for a dose of inspiration, coaching, and teachings to help you rewrite your money story, create abundance on your terms, and grow your business in a way that's fully aligned for you. This is going to be so much fun. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. I have a special guest for you today. I have Crystal Haitsma, who is the parenting coach, who is a manifestor, who is the queen of just living an extraordinary life and going for big things. And that's why I wanted to bring Crystal on. Crystal has been a client of mine for a little over a year, was in the money manifestation movement, and it was so fun witnessing her journey manifesting, witnessing her growth, and just seeing what she went for. So I wanted to have Crystal on today to talk more about that and this amazing thing that you had manifested and came to life last year. So we're going to dive into that. And then we're just going to talk all things manifestation because we both love it. So welcome, Crystal. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here because I feel like I'm the queen of manifesting weird things, like things that other people might not actually want to manifest for themselves. They're like, oh, that's weird. But I love everything that I've been able to manifest so far. And what I love about manifestation is that it can be so specific. I think so many times you coached me on this where I was like, but I should want this. I should want this normal life with full-time hours with whatever, I don't know, but I never wanted that.
Yeah.
And so often it was coaching me on my goals so that I would allow myself to just be like, what do I actually want?
Yes.
Because whatever I actually want is the thing that lights me up. But I was going for this, I don't know, more stagnant life that I felt like I should want because everybody else wants it. Yes. So anyways, now I don't do that.
I love it. And I think that's probably I know that's so common for us to feel like we need to fit into a box and kind of manifest that box of what's going to make us socially acceptable and what's going to make our parents the most proud of us or society look up to us the most. But really that doesn't actually feel authentic to us, and it's what we actually want is something different. So are you open to sharing what are some of the things that are maybe non-traditional or some of the desires that you tapped into that maybe others would think, things about it?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like my whole life has been out of the box and whenever I try to fit myself in the box, then I'm feeling stuck and low energy and whatever. And then I'm like, wait a second, I'm in the box again. What am I doing here? Why am I feeling this way? And so I think it started years and years and years ago when I first decided to homeschool my kids and they were pretty little. And I was just I'm just going to try for a couple years. And I knew zero people that homeschooled. I knew zero about it. My dad was a public school teacher and he kind of looked at me why are you doing this? And what is happening? Anyways, but I just I didn't like waking up really early. I didn't like having to always make sure that there was lunch food and having to be on call to drop them stuff off if they forgot things or that rigid schedule and routine just was not for me.
Yeah.
And after a year of doing it, I think I was pregnant with my third. And I just remember thinking after I have this third little boy, I'm not going to want to just be in this rigid structure. So I was like, you know what, we'll just try it for a couple of years. I never planned on homeschooling forever. But anyways, here I am. My son just graduated high school and we've been homeschooling now for 11 years. So we kind of accidentally homeschooled the entire way through. And that was kind of my first against the grain, nobody else is doing this, but I'm doing it way. And then that kind of ballooned into, I did do parenting in a very different way. So my parenting coaching is very different. And anytime I feel like I'm doing things in the way that everybody kind of does them, I notice that I feel in that stuck energy. So I hadn't figured that out for business or manifestation yet. So I had this idea. I remember at one point you coached me on this goal that I had of some money goal that I had that month or that year for business. And you were like, how does it feel? And I was like, terrible. You're like, well, what do you want to have your goal be? And I was like, I don't even want to have a money goal. And you're like, well, then why do you? And I'm like, because you're supposed to when you have a business. And as soon as I dropped that, I had decided to make this like time goal. And I was like, oh, I actually think it sounds more fun to like work less.
Yeah.
And so I made this time goal to like only work 15 hours a week. And I got there from January to June. And then I decided it would be fun to do like 10 to 12 hours a week. And I got there by September. And the next January, when my husband was doing our financials and he was like, how much money do you think you made? Because I never know.
Yeah.
And it was almost exactly to the dollar, like double of my previous year.
Wow.
When I made like this boring money goal that somebody told me I should make.
Oh my gosh. So what were you working the previous year? How many hours? Because you said you went down to 15, then to 10. What was the year before?
I don't know for sure because of like how much time Instagram was taking. I'm sure it was more than that, but like I would say like 25-ish hours, like 20 to 25 hours. Plus I'm sure there was some like leaking in of like Instagram time that like, who knows if it's business time or not time. But it definitely felt like too much because at this time I had 4 kids. I probably didn't mention that in my bio, but I have 4 children. So at this time they're all pretty little and I'm homeschooling them all and running a business. So I'm feeling very just like there's a lot happening. And that was the thing in my life that felt like it needed to shift, was like, I really want more of this balance. I want to have more kind of boundaries around my work hours and I would like them to be less.
Yeah.
And the 2 years previous to that, my goal had been 100K because we both certified from the same school. And that's kind of like what the goal is. Like
totally.
Everybody just gives it to you and they're like, make 100K in your first year. Well, I'm a stay-at-home mom with no background in entrepreneurship or anything. I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years before this. And I gave myself this goal that everybody says you should have. And then I beat myself up that whole first year. So I made 50K Canadian in my first year.
Oh my gosh. Beat yourself up.
I remember hating it the whole way. I felt so bad at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I felt like it was my fault. Like I should have just believed more. I should have like thought my way to it more or something. The second year, same thing, make almost like exactly the same amount. I think it was like between 40 and 50K. And then that third year, I think it was like 85 or 87 or something. And that was when I made the time goal.
Yes.
And I was like, that's interesting.
Yes.
Yes. And I think since then it's been this revelation of like, for me, manifestation and intuition are like how I run my business and my life now, everything in my business and my life. And whenever I'm feeling stuck energy for anything, I shift out of that and I'm like, okay, wait a second, this is not working for me. Like, what do I need to do to change? And I change my energy often through changing like my goal, through allowing myself to manifest whatever I want. And so that was a pretty significant, like you could see that the outcome was way better in working less. And then I think it was the next year that I just like didn't want a goal at all. Again, I think I remember you coached me on this and I'm like, I don't even think I want a goal. Like I don't want it to work towards anything. And it was perfect because I did a lot of rest, did a lot of play, did a lot of hanging out with my kids. By then, my husband also started a business from home, which also came from me manifesting that because I always wanted this, like, I don't know why, but I always wanted my husband home. I remember when he first got his first job out of university and he was at work like 9 to 5 every day and I'm at home with the kids every day. And I remember day one, no joke, sitting there thinking, is this life? Like, is this just what life is going to be like? Like we get 2 weeks of vacation that we have to book out 12 months in advance. And I am at home with these tiny little like kids and never sleeping. And like, he's at work and I don't get to see him. And I was like, that's not cool. Like I married him because I want to spend time with him.
Totally.
And I really like my husband like a lot. So
he's pretty cool.
That just did not, he's pretty cool. So that just did not jive with me. And I remember like telling my friends about it and they all just kind of laughed. Like, well, that's what life is, dude. Like suck it up.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it though? Like, and so I just kind of was resigned to this, like, I guess this is our life. And like, I tried to do some out of the box things, which I was able to do for sure. But it definitely felt like I'd been given this life that like, that's just what everybody does. And like, there is no other alternative. And anyways, manifested that now he's at home working with me. He runs his own business and we spend like so much time together, as much time together as we want, probably too much time together now.
I love it.
And it's lovely. But so this my last year, so in January, I decided not to set a goal. And we were traveling to Hawaii. When we're in Hawaii, we're trying to decide, like, what are we going to do next? We were in a rental that was coming up and the lease was ending and they were moving back because we were kind of just moving around. Anyways, we have also a weird travel life where we kind of just move wherever we want. So we were living in this place temporarily and they were coming home in the fall. And I went back to my logical brain again. I don't know why I always do this because I have to learn this lesson 100 times, but I'm like writing down, I printed off a map of North America and I like wrote down like all the things I wanted in it. And like, I want a city like this. And I tried to go to that logical thinking space of like, I will be able to figure this out logically to figure out where we should go next. And it felt terrible. And I was asking everybody else what they thought, which is also a sign that I'm not on the right path.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden this thought came in, like, your whole life you've wanted to travel full time around the world. That's a weird goal that I've had forever. Not even a goal, just like this dream of like, one day I'll do this.
Yeah.
And I knew it would happen one day, but I didn't know how. And in that moment, I was like, this is the how. Like I kept waiting till like I was making more money or I had more time and my kids were older, so it'd be easier to travel with them. And I think what really hit was like that I realized it was my oldest son's probable last year home. And I was like, wait, it would really suck for us to do it like without him.
Yeah.
So my youngest was 7 and my oldest at this time was 16. So anyway, so we decided to travel the world. And that was my new manifestation, was like, I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go fly around the whole world. We circumnavigated the globe with our family. Yeah. And so I didn't have a business goal. I didn't even really set any intentions in my business that year.
Yeah. This was just last year.
This was just last year. So we just got
trip
home
just completed, right? Yeah.
Yes. This trip just completed. So we left. We left in September. So we started talking about it in the spring. By June, we decided we were going to do it. By September, we left and didn't have a lot planned, just had the first couple months planned. And again, I had to learn like to get out of my logical brain when it came to travel planning, because that also did not work until I was like, I'm just going to do it intuitively and just go wherever we want. So we went and traveled, we flew around the world and we got home in May, and then we manifested a house. So those are all a lot of different manifestation stories, but
I'm obsessed. I'm in love. It's amazing, Crystal. Isn't it fun to look back and like reflect on what you have manifested just in the past couple years, like as you've leaned into this? And I have so many questions for you and so much to unpack within this, because there's just, I don't know, I love this. And what I'm curious first is, how do you feel, like, since you can tell the difference, you're like, I used to try to manifest things that were, like you said, in a box, right? Like what is logical, what other people want for me, or what feels right. Or, you know what I mean? Like so you have that contrast. You can see the difference between when you're trying to manifest something that you don't actually want, or like that 100K goal, for example, that you're like, that doesn't light me up, but it seems to be the way to go. So you're trying to manifest it. Versus when you lean into true desire and really ask yourself, what is it that I want? And you get crystal clear on what you actually want. What does your soul want to experience or do or create? How does it feel different? And what is the difference in experience manifesting each of those ways?
So I think the difference for me is like in my energy, is in like how I feel inside. And when I'm feeling more in the box, I'm feeling this energy that feels like constricting. I'm also looking around for the answer from someone else and looking to see what other people are doing. Like I did so much like job shadowing of other people, right? Like checking out like, what are they doing and what's their business like? And like, how can I learn from them and whatever? And just like consuming all of this stuff. And it felt really like icky inside. Like it felt like, well, for one, it felt like I was always failing and that I was never going to be enough. Not only was I was never going to achieve it, but also like I would never be enough. And one of the things I've definitely learned is like the amount that I'm able to manifest is the amount that my self-worth is at. Like if I am not open to feeling like I'm worthy enough to receive, then I'm not going to be able to receive that more that I want. And when I set some sort of an intention, I don't even like the word goal now. I like try not to use it. But like when I set an intention for like what it is that I'm like working towards next, when I allow myself just to have it be whatever it wants to be, it feels fun, it feels light, and it feels expansive. Like it feels like it's like moving from me and up and out. And I've really got familiar with those two different feelings in my body. And so when I'm back into the stuck mode, I know like I either need to get coached, or I need to go meditate, or I need to like go for a walk in nature, or like I know that there's just some energy that I need to shift in my body. I have an energy worker sometimes I go work with, but I'm like, I know what I need to do in those moments to kind of shift out of that feeling and back into how I want to feel. And when I'm feeling this more like open, expansive energy, then like random ideas come to me. Like that's when I decided to do like a women's retreat. And I was like, but you've never run a retreat before. And like, you don't have a ton of clients yet. And like, nobody does retreats in this area. And, or like when I decided to go travel around the world too, like, I'm sure that's probably not an intention that a lot of people want for their whole family. But I've always wanted it. And anyways, so it's interesting though too, because once you're doing it, you're like, ooh, life is still 50-50 here.
Hi, friend. Let me ask you something. Are you ready to up level your money mindset and really release the things that have been holding you back? Release your limitations and your money blocks and that self-doubt and imposter syndrome that's been coming up for you, that's getting in the way of creating more abundance and more impact in your business. If so, I have the perfect opportunity for you that you're going to absolutely love. So mark your calendars for September 20th and 21st, because I am hosting my first ever abundance retreat live in San Diego, California. So we're going to come together and we are going to do the inner and outer work to create more abundance in your life. And I absolutely cannot wait for this. So picture it, me, you, and a group of soulful entrepreneurs coming together, doing a combination of coaching and other fun activities that are going to help you shift your energy and shift your money mindset in a massive way. My past retreat participants have said things like, I feel like I got 6 months of coaching in 2 days, because it's an immersive and a transformational experience. And it's so much fun. The people who come to these are amazing, and there's so much connection and networking that happens. And I just want to invite you in. And right now we have our early bird discount. So you can get some money off. All you have to do is go to the show notes and register. And I will see you in San Diego in September. It's going to be so much fun. Yes. We got to talk more about that too.
Because it was not just rainbows and daisies. It's actually really hard to travel with 4 kids full time. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
So I feel like it expanded it was almost like it was like both of the 50 and the 50 more.
Yeah.
Like I felt each of the 50 more. So I think it's like just noticing that energy within my body and what it feels like, and helping me find something to kind of shift back, and allowing myself not to set an intention if an intention doesn't come, like not trying to find something for my brain to be like, wait, you should be setting something.
Yes.
And so recently it's been like looking for a house, and anyways, and in that also, like, it's just been interesting that my brain wants to go back into logical mode, but I noticed that energy and immediately shifted it out, and I would immediately shift it out again, and definitely came and got coached, meditated a lot, but every time I felt that stuck energy, I would shift it out. And looking for houses has been so flowy. Like it's just been so easy. And I feel so unattached. Like I would go look through a house and I'd be like, okay, yeah, I kind of like this one. Let's put an offer. It wouldn't work out. And I'd just be like, all right, that one didn't work out. And we'd like try it again. And I think the same thing is in my business. Like when I'm in that flowy energy, it's like, try this. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's try this. Instead of, I think when we attach it, what we're really attaching is the need for external validation. Like then I will feel enough once I achieve this goal or whatever. So for me, it's like constantly trying to pull myself back into the energy of not being so attached to the outcome, and more into this like flowy, trusting, easeful state where everything just works out magically. So,
well, and I love how you touched on the fact that you have, it's like, you know where to go when you are in that energy of stuck in logic and feeling like you're trying to get into the how, or, like it just feels bad. You can now identify that, having the contrast of knowing, oh, I know how it feels when it's flowy, and I also know how it feels when it's not. And so I love that you're like, oh, these are the 5 things that I go to. I either come get coached, I do hypnosis, I'll do a meditation, right? Like you have your tool belt and you know what helps you move your energy. And I think that's huge. And I think it's something for everyone listening to consider is like, how do you know when you're not in alignment, or how do you know when you're not in flow, and what are your tools, right? And like getting clear on that makes all the difference, because it helps us move through it so much faster when we're able to receive that kind of support.
Well, and also our brain, like when we're in that stuck energy, our brain wants to tell us what the problem is and why. Like it's going to town on like, well, the problem's actually that like you're never going to succeed in business, or like you're never going to become a better parent, or like you're never going to achieve whatever the goal is.
Yeah.
And it feels very true, and it feels very heavy, and it feels like important. Like we need to listen to it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, wait a second. Like one of my favorite quotes that I read from young Pueblo's book, Lighter, was, I try not to believe the thoughts about myself when I'm feeling big emotions.
Yeah.
Like the thoughts about myself, the thoughts about my life, the thoughts about my potential. Like when I'm feeling that heavy emotion, like I just know I don't need to believe these ones today. Like we can come back to them and like maybe they'll have something important to say tomorrow, which has also been helpful if you are a female entrepreneur in cycle tracking. So I track my cycle, and 5 days before my bleed are always the big emotions, the like, you know, this is never going to work. And then I'm like, oh, wait, this is the part where we just wait 5 days. And then I wait 5 days.
Me
and
too.
I feel better.
I have that exact thing. I'm like, believing 0 thoughts today. Literally 0 thoughts. Here comes the heavy cloud. Like we're rolling with it.
And it comes every month, and it happens every time. So for me, it is just noticing like, I don't have to make this mean anything. I don't have to make this energy that I'm feeling in my body mean some big, you know, exponential thing. Because sometimes we go into thought work and belief work when we're feeling those big emotions, and it's not actually effective, because when we feel big emotions, our prefrontal cortex like shuts down. The learning center of our brain is no longer there. Our logical thinking brain's no longer there. And so, and I know this about my kids. It's so easy. Like when they're having a huge emotional fit, this just happened last week. I'm on my way to Las Vegas for an event. My daughter's freaking out. And I just know whatever she's saying in that moment, like she doesn't even mean. Like, I don't even believe her in that moment. Cause I know like if she says she hates me, or she's mad, or I'm never going to leave her again, or why do I always like, I just know what she's really saying is like, she's just feeling mad. She's just feeling sad. Like she just needs to be comforted and to be heard. And I'm like, oh, so we're all just little kids.
Right.
I get it. Like, it's just like noticing like, oh, I'm feeling big emotions. I don't need to believe my beliefs right now. I'm going to have some big thoughts and big beliefs about myself and about my potential, but I can just calm myself down, go into my body, calm my nervous system.
Yes. And I love this. And I just want to reflect to listeners, like if just as we're both talking about, you know, manifesting from 2 different places, manifesting from true desire versus manifesting like what we think we need, you know, I think for a lot of people, when I've seen this within myself, but when it feels like you cannot manifest this thing, you just keep hitting block after block, or it feels terrible, or you're really hard on yourself if it doesn't come to life, you're probably like, I think it's such an opportunity to check in with yourself and say like, is this what I actually want? Like, where is this coming from? And I call it manifesting from my ego. Am I manifesting from my ego thinking like, oh, my ego is going to be boosted if I have this thing in some way or another, I'll be looked up to, or society will think this is right, or my family, whatever it is, right? Friends or followers, right? So I think that's another thing to like check in on. Is like, do you feel like you're just hitting up against a wall nonstop? You might want to check in on the desire. Like, does it actually feel alive? Do you feel lit up by it? Because if not, why not ask yourself what would actually light me up? And it's like, look what that has led to for you, Crystal.
Well, and you've coached me on that same thing. You've asked me so many times, like, do you want this? And I'd be like,
true.
Wait a second. Do I want this? Like, what do I want? I think that's the best question to ask yourself is like, what do I actually want? Like if there was no like external modality of success, like we decided once upon a time that success was like wealth and followers and prestige and promotions and all of that. If like, that's not all true, which logically we know it's not true, but subconsciously we sometimes feel that way. But if that really isn't true, and like, if anything is possible, like, what do I actually want? So it was travel, it was world travel. And then at the end of our travels, so our travels were really hard. P.S. Careful what you manifest. It was really difficult. But as we were traveling, I was like, what do I want? And I realized that there was actually some stability that I did want. I wanted a house, and I wanted to have a place to like put the beautiful art that I was seeing around the world that I wasn't buying. Cause I'm like, where am I going to put this?
Yeah.
I don't even like own a house. We hadn't owned a house in a while. We were just kind of moving from place to place. So I recognized that by giving myself the manifestation that I wanted, or that I thought I really did want of traveling, it was beautiful. And I learned a lot from it. But I also, what I learned most was like, I actually do want something more grounded and more steady and more stable. And so then that's what I manifested next. And because I got so good at manifestation, I knew when I was not in that energy and when I was. And so I felt like the whole house process has been that way also. And so I just keep going to like, where's it lighting me up? What do I want to do next?
I love that. And I think it's also like our manifestations often lead us to the next manifestation. So it's probably within the contrast that you found that desire to want to stay grounded. But my hunch is, had you not gone on that trip, you probably wouldn't have said, I want to be grounded, right? It would have been
for
like,
sure I wouldn't have.
it like now, you know, because of the contrast and because you got to experience that. And half the time I feel like the reason our soul has these desires is because they're meant to grow us, right? So yeah, life is still 50-50. It was still hard, but I would pick the hard of traveling around the world, experiencing something with my entire family and growing through that, versus the 50-50 of like, oh, I can't do that. I'm just going to stay here, right? That's still going to be 50-50, but there's not a lot of evolution that comes from that. So, you know, sometimes I think those things, they feel harder almost, like when we step into newness, when we step into these big manifestations. And I know that for sure. Like I've been going through a lot of expansion and it's growing pains, and they feel bigger. Like you said, when you were traveling, you're like, the highs felt higher, the lows felt lower. And it makes sense because it's new. It's not the same 50-50 that you're used to. So I think half the time it's meant for us to blossom. Like, is it really for us to experience it? Yes, on some levels, but also our soul wants to keep evolving. So that's why we keep going for new things versus just like staying in a box, you know?
And I do think like I learned, like the things that I learned while I was traveling were, one, like when my nervous system is dysregulated, I can like feel what that feels like now. And I know I just need to like get into my body and like move and hypnotherapy and whatever else to help move that energy. And so getting so familiar with how that felt through feeling dysregulated almost constantly for the first 2 months really helped me understand that key of it. And then also like just knowing like you can literally do anything through manifestation and intuition. Cause I was like, well, you can't do travel. Like you have to plan, you have to have an itinerary, you have to book flights. Like it doesn't happen that way. Like everybody's like, you know, you have to book flights 6 months out or 12 months out or whatever. So as I'm planning intensely the first couple of months and hating every minute of it, then I was like, by December, I was like, wait a second, like, what if we just did it more flowy? So I just pick an area like of the globe and be like, maybe here. And then like an area of that, like a city. And then I would kind of pick within that city. And lo and behold, it worked out like magically, right? I spend, instead of 20 hours of travel planning, I'm spending 1, maybe 2 hours of travel planning because I just felt into where I wanted to go next instead of logically trying to figure it out. And so then from January to May, that part of it was a lot more flowy, and I enjoyed travel more in those moments, but it was still really hard. But I do think the hard came from, like you said, like, I think it was purposeful. I think it showed me like what I actually want. Cause I actually thought we'd go on this travel adventure and I would convince my husband that we should do this full time for the rest of our lives. Like we should never own a house and we should travel permanently forever full time. And halfway through, he was like, what do you think about that now? And I was like, nope. Nope. I was surprised. I really thought I would just want to do it forever. So now I have all these new ways and ideas going in my mind about how that's going to happen and how we'll still be able to travel. But now we're going to own houses around the world that we can travel back and forth to.
Oh my God. I love it, Crystal.
So that's my new manifestation. I want to buy 5 houses and I want to just
oh my gosh. Well,
own
actually,
houses
you know
and
what's
own
wild? You told me that, I think, when we first met, you were like, you know, I do this coaching, but I really want to do something with renovating, with houses. Like I'm recalling this back, you know, a year and a half ago. I remember this conversation and I'm like, do it.
Oh my goodness. And it's been so much fun. Like even the house was definitely a manifestation. Like all of these offers fell through. And instead of being like upset about them, I was just like, oh, well, the universe was just saying that wasn't the one. So cool. Like, let's, let's wait. And I was so unattached to it that I was even like, oh, if it doesn't work out, like we'll go do something else. We'll go travel again or whatever. So when this one did work out, I've had so much energy to do it with. So we're building a new house inside this old 1970s house that we purchased, and designing it and the ideas and like everything like has just been so fun and so energizing. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, I just want to go do houses. Anyways.
Right? You have to follow what lights you up. Are you a generator or manifesting generator?
Manifesting generator.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it totally goes with your design too, of like following what lights you up. And with the manifesting generator, it's doing multiple things. It's not just like one thing, right? It's following all of your desires. It's following all of the things that light your soul up. And that's how you are going to be the most successful and manifest the life of your dreams, is by following that design. It's so.
And I will talk a minute about human design because it has changed my life.
Yeah.
Mine is wait for the invitation. Like, my strategy is wait for the invitation, which I didn't like finding out about it because I'm like, no, I'm going to go make things happen.
Yeah.
But when I tried applying for contract positions in the past as a coach, I've always like been like, oh, this one will make logical sense, right? I'll apply here. And I do think deep down, like, I didn't actually want them because I just was following it from that logical thing. Anyway, so fast forward, I'm traveling and I had a couple people on my podcast. Both of them offered me jobs and I literally did not apply. There was no application. So now I have these like 2 contracting coaching positions that have been so fun. I'm coaching couples on like relationships. I'm coaching women on anxiety. I started doing hypnotherapy now. I run women's retreats. I do intuitive life and business coaching. So every session is different. Like, every single thing is different. And I love it so much more than if I was sitting in like, well, I'm going to parent coach all day for 8 hours. Like, that wouldn't feel as good as how I'm doing it now. And same with the houses. Like, I'm going back at the end of today to go renovate for the rest of the week. And I like can't wait. Like, I can't wait to be like, oh, what am I going to pick out next? And I'm going to go paint the next floor. And like, anyways,
yes.
I just think understanding your human design and like how you respond. And then also the other important piece too is like how you make your decisions. And mine is like a very gut instinct, sacral. I'm a sacral manifesting generator. And so when I feel that way, I kind of initially know the response. And then I go to my logical brain. I'm like, no, it should make sense. And anyways, basically my entire life story is like, don't do the thing that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. 100%. This is so awesome. So what I think listeners are probably asking or probably thinking is, oh, I would love to do that. Like, that sounds amazing. But Crystal, you must be totally loaded. You must be a multimillionaire in order to go and like, be traveling around the world with 4 kids and your husband, for almost a full year, and like manifest a home, right? Like, but tell us
how not that is with you. Yes, that is so funny because people do think that. Like, often people are just like, wow, like, wouldn't that be nice? Like, no, that is not how we travel. In fact,
I have to wait until once I get to this place, then I could think about doing it.
Then I can think about doing it. In fact, so much so that like my kids were on a flight the other day and they were like, oh my goodness, there's movie screens on this airplane. They're like, this is so nice. They're like, look at all the space we have in front of our feet. And I'm like, yeah. And people around us were kind of like staring at us. And I'm like, we only travel budget airlines. So anyway, so I could say all of the travel hacks that we did, but essentially we tried to do it as low cost as possible. And we were still working while we were traveling. We're also affiliates for a company called Kajabi. And so we have some passive income that comes in as well every month. And so we do have a little bit of other things happening. So we're still making money for sure. But we are not even sort of like loaded financially. We're very loaded in like energetic wealth and abundance, but financially we're really not. And so we didn't have a ton of money set aside to do it. But we did have some savings. Yeah. And then I would go onto like Google Flight Tracker and you can type in everywhere. So I type in like, we're in Indonesia and I typed in everywhere and it would show me where to go. And so a lot of times I'd be like, oh, well, it's a $20 flight to Singapore. So that's where we're going next.
Yeah.
And like, that's where we'd go. So we definitely tried to do it as low cost as possible. We were still working during it. But I will say, like, I honestly don't even know how much money we probably made. But like, I'm guessing like combined while we were traveling for that whole like January to December year, we probably only made like 100,000 total, like Canadian, which is like nothing American. Anyways, like it was not a lot, but we just through savings and through, kind of doing budget travel and stuff, we just made it work. So I definitely think like part of my brain was like, no, you have to wait until it logically makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was what was stopping me from doing it. But like it worked. We spent more money than we thought we were going to, but it was fine. Like we still were able to make it happen. But I'm glad that I didn't let that stop me.
Yeah.
Like the logical part of my brain that was like, no, you have to make like 500,000 a year. And then once you make that, then you can go travel full time. I'm so glad I didn't listen. For one, because like my son wouldn't even come with us. Like he would have been off at college.
Totally. And on top of that, I think that thought pattern doesn't ever go away. So you could get to 500K and you'd be like, well, once I'm making $1 million, like that, I have to wait mentality will stay with us forever. It never quite feels comfortable to do it, right? It's like, but you leaned into courage. So what is it that allows you to just take the leap, even though like, I think people can see that you're very surrendered, like you just go for the things that you want, even if it doesn't make completely logical sense. And even the way that you didn't have this whole trip planned and you just went one place to the other. What allows you, like, what is the faith that you have or the beliefs that you have? I want to dig into that a little bit because I think for some people, they would be terrified of going for that, yet they absolutely could.
I think it's so we have these two different parts of ourselves, and you've mentioned it, like the ego self, like wants control. And the other part of ourself, which I call now the true self, and the true being of who I am is actually very trusting and very surrendering and like knows that like everything will work out. Like, even if it's hard, like we will figure it out. And I could start to feel that within myself. Like I felt this control of like, no, we have to plan the whole entire thing and every single minute of every day and like know all the things. But then I also knew how this other part of me felt. And I really tried to shift out of it. And I recently read a quote that said, fear means that it's something you really want to do. Like if you're afraid about it, like there's a reason that the fear is there. It's because it's like showing you your path.
Yeah.
And so for me, I try to just, again, notice that energy of like, when I'm in this stuck, when I'm in this fear, how can I like shift the energy in my body? Because when I shift it, for me, I have a belief in God, and that feels intrinsically tied to my belief in myself. Like I have the same belief in myself. And when I shift into that true self space, I just believe that I'm held and that I'm taken care of always, no matter what.
Wow.
And so we would go into some pretty crazy travel situations that like would probably freak a lot of people out. And I'd try to remind myself like, okay, wait a second. Like we have always been okay in the past, and like we will be okay. And so even with money, like, because every month I'm like, wait, we're not working a lot this month. Like, are we okay? I like check in with my husband or whatever. I'm like, do we need to, pause and kind of work more? And he was like, no, it's fine. Like we're going to be okay. But it was never the amount of money that helped me feel better. It was always like, it's always the feeling that we're looking for. And so I can have that feeling no matter what is happening. And even with houses, like I got home and was like, I want to do all these houses. Well, like we only qualified for $300,000, which is less than we qualified for when we owned a home a few years ago, but because of interest rates and mortgage rules and changing or whatever. And I'm like, what can we even like get? Like, how is this? But again, I was like, wait, we'll be guided to the right spot, to the right house, to the right situation. And sure enough, we found this beautiful, amazing place in this cute little town where it's full of homeschoolers and just like cute little kids, and it'll be so fun. But I think that it is that belief of like everything will work out how it needs, and I can just trust and just like lean into that. And I'm not always in that energy, but it's just noticing when I'm not and shifting back into it, and just getting to know yourself more. Like for me, knowing that I do need a lot of different things. Knowing that I need it to be fun or I'm not going to do it. I recently was pursuing an ADHD diagnosis. And one of the things they mentioned was that people with ADHD have really low dopamine. And dopamine is like the expectation drug. So like when you go, I was just in Las Vegas, and when you go do the slot machines, everybody like you get dopamine from the expectation that you might win, not from the actual win. Right.
And which is why you need to keep going.
Yes. And I just thought about like, that makes so much sense with my life. Like I feel lit up when I'm expecting something big, when I'm like, so when I decided to manifest this house, I didn't manifest this house. I manifested 5 houses. And whenever someone was said, what are you going to do next? I would say, we're going to buy 5 houses. And my husband would just laugh. And he's like, that's impossible. We're only going to qualify for 1 mortgage. And I'm like, I don't know how it's going to work, but we're going to manifest 5 houses.
You totally are.
And that lights me up.
Yeah.
And my manifestation, my current intention for my business is to manifest 100K.
Yeah.
And at one point it was 50K, but then that sounded more stale. And then I went to 100K. I'm not making anywhere near that money,
Right.
but that amount of money makes me feel excited and makes me feel energized, because I'm like, whoa, wouldn't that be cool? And so I'm a big proponent of like giving yourself a really wild intention that's like, doesn't seem realistic at all. Like the more unrealistic, I think the better.
Yeah.
For me, at least, because it lights me up so much that it puts me in the right state of mind. I'm still manifesting 5 houses. I'm already looking at like what we're going to do next when I'm done this one.
Yeah.
We'll be finished renovating in like a month. And my husband's like, the bank's not just going to give us more money in a month. And I'm like, you have no idea. It is going to work out.
It's so done. It's so done. And that's
already done.
It's like, where did this desire even come from? Who knows? It came from the universe. It came, like, you are meant to have this for a reason. If something keeps coming like that, like I want multiple houses, I want to renovate, I want to do something with housing, it's meant for you to have. It's done. It's just, if you just got to follow the next, you're like, let's start with one and then we'll get the next one. And I have literally zero doubt that we'll be talking in the near future and you'll be like, Jamie, I manifested my 5 houses. Like,
I
come
totally. Like our renovation, like my budget for my renovation is like 30K. Like I'm going to spend between 30 and 40K. And I'm making it so beautiful. Like it literally is going to look like a show home once you go through it. And I have no doubt that it will increase in value by like several hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes. And I'm like, well, then I'll just go get another one with that money. Like I'm just so like, it just feels so possible. So for me, it's been interesting to see that part of my business that I don't view as part of my business. Then going back to like, I'm pitching not this new, but I'm pitching a different theme of a retreat. And my brain was going back to like logical, stuck energy. This is only like a week ago. And like trying to figure out the numbers and how many people do I need and how am I going to figure it out and what kind of ads am I going to run? And then I was like, wait a second, I'm in that energy again. Yeah. I don't do numbers. Yeah. Like I don't try to figure out things logically. And as soon as I was able to, I felt the energetic shift. I like chatted with a friend and I basically told her, I need you to coach me real quick and basically just like not believe any of the things I'm going to tell you and help me like, she's not a coach, and help me understand this. Yeah. And within 20 minutes, I felt the shift. I cried on the phone and was like, okay, I'm good. And I already felt like I was like, yep, I'm into my next energy. And it's just that. It's just remembering that. And I don't know why it's so easy for me when it comes to houses. It's so much harder to remember in marketing my coaching practice, but
there's a lot more conditioning. I think the areas of our lives where there's a lot of noise and conditioning and people telling us processes and steps and how to do it. And the more that we're following that kind of stuff, probably with parenting, I'm not a parent, but I'm guessing there's so much on like how to parent out there. So there's a lot of deconditioning that you have to do to figure out your way of parenting. And I think it's the same with business versus houses, unless you're taking all these courses on how to renovate houses and, you know, all that stuff, you don't have conditioning there. So you can just trust your intuition more. But if we're following a million strategies and coaches and have gone through many programs and people who have told us what to do, our brain's consumed with this as a way. So we just have to pull that apart and say, what do I actually want? And I just think it takes a little bit more work. I'm the same way. So I totally
That is so true, because I'm like, I just knew immediately like what colors I wanted, what this. And then as I chatted with an interior designer and she thought she was going to plan the whole thing. And I'm like, no, I have it planned in my mind. And I listed off all these things. And she was like, those are all the things that are coming to be in the like, what's like fancy now kind of, I don't even know what it's called, like what's fashionable. And I didn't ask, I didn't look around. I didn't even look on Pinterest. This was before I even created a Pinterest board. In my mind, I already knew exactly what I wanted it to look like. But you're right, I have no conditioning. Yeah. Like there is nobody that's told me like, this is what you do for a house. I'm just like, I'm going to knock out this wall. And someone's like, oh, that's a load bearing wall. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll figure it out. Yeah. I'm sure you can still knock it out. Tell me how I have to do it. Like, this is the wall that needs to be knocked out.
Yep.
And it's been that way the whole time. Yeah. And but you're right. Within marketing, I've spent years learning and growing since I certified in like 2020, and same with parenting and same with schooling. Like a lot of that, I had to do a lot of deconditioning, a ton around parenting, a ton around education and how learning actually happens. So I guess if you're starting out your business, like don't listen to any marketing advice out there at all.
Underthink. That's what I always say. Practice underthinking, right? We spend way too much time overthinking. If you let yourself underthink and just like make decisions, go for it. You're going to be so much more successful. It'll just happen faster. So absolutely. I love all of this. And Crystal, you have to share with the audience, because everybody's going to love you, where can they find you? And also, if someone's interested in working with you, what might that look like?
Okay, that's a good question. It depends on the day, I guess. But I run women's retreats. They're reparenting inner child work retreats for women. And I have another one coming up in September. I do couples coaching and individual coaching, both one-on-one. And I have some groups. I have an intuitive coaching group going on. And everyththing's on my website at coachcrystal.ca. And perfect. It should make sense there because my husband built that, not me. So it will make more sense.
It's more logic, right?
But my two favorite places to hang out when I'm not on an Instagram break are the parenting coach, the .parenting coach. And I also have the intuitive coach there. So the _intuitive coach.
We'll too.
And then I have a podcast. So you can come check out my parenting coach podcast and DM me on Instagram. I will answer all your questions. I'm sure people are listening and are like wowed by the crazy travel story that I told and how I didn't plan anything. And if you want to ask more specific questions about that, I love talking about travel.
So fun.
So I will give you all the free advice in DMs that you want about travel. And I will say it was worth it, but it was really, really hard. And unless you feel a deep intrinsic desire to travel around the world, don't do it. Unless it really feels intuitively like it's meant for you. I know that it was meant for me and I know I was supposed to do it, but it was much harder than I could have ever anticipated. It was like when you really feel like you should hike a mountain and then you we hike mountains a lot. And whenever I'm halfway, I'm like, why did I decide to do this?
Exactly. Why in the world did I have this desire? Yeah.
Yes. And then I get to the top and I'm like, oh my goodness, this was so worth it. And you feel so good about yourself that you accomplished this hard thing. When I was flying from Tokyo to LA, I got dropped off at the airport in Tokyo and my friend was there and she gave me a hug and she was like, you did it. And I just burst into tears because I was like, I just felt like I summited this mountain that was actually so much harder than I thought it was going to be, this hike, this world around hike that I thought that was a lot harder. So anyways, I love it. Come to me, chat about all the things and manifest your way to business, intuit your way to business, and don't listen to so many marketing opinions. You'll be fine.
I'm super excited because I asked Crystal to come into the money manifestation movement, which you were already a client, have already gone through the process. You understand the ins and outs of that manifestation process. But I wanted to invite you in because you specialize in hypnosis, hypnotherapy. You have a lot of practice around intuition. And I wanted you to come and lead the group through that. And next month by the time this comes out, it'll be in August, right? So in August, we're focused on big money. So for people who have a deep desire to create big money, but feel like, oh, maybe it's not for me. I was like, Crystal, can you come and do some hypnosis on this and really help people dive into, if it's a true desire for you, how to really dive into that. So I'm so excited for you to come in there too. So everyone can look forward to that.
I can't even tell you how much hypnotherapy has changed my life. And clients will come to me afterwards and be like, I've been dealing with this for years, since I was a child, or this is something that I've never thought would shift, that shifts in one session. So I cannot even wait. I feel like it aligns so well with big money and what's blocking us from big money. And anyway, so come join the movement before then. Join our hypnotherapy call.
Absolutely. It'll be fabulous. Thank you, Crystal. You're such an inspiration. You're such a light. It's so fun to have you on. So thanks for sharing your story, and everyone go follow Crystal.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope this episode is something that you'll be able to add to your manifestation toolbox to come back to when you need a little extra motivation. If you like what you've heard today and want to take it deeper, you've got to come check out my signature coaching program, the Money Manifestation Movement. It's the place where you'll not only learn manifestation, but you'll begin to live it alongside me and an amazing community of like-minded entrepreneurs doing this work together. Head on over to jamieberman.com to learn more.